You're watching The W Show. It is so great to have your company. Nat Edwards with you. We've got Sarah Black, Riley Beveridge as well. And our special guest this week is Carlton Vice-Captain in Mimi Hill. Mimi, welcome to you.
Thanks for having me, Nat.
W
First time on the show, yeah. Exciting stuff.
We are very pumped to have you here. We'll talk all things Blues in just a moment. But off the top, Riley, you have some big news around the Collingwood Football Club.
Yeah, I think there are some genuine concerns now starting to emanate from within the Collingwood playing group around the direction of the program, and I think that concern is being highlighted now by the fact that 5 or 6 of the club's best players remain out of contract and aren't in any real rush to renew as things stand until they get some clarity on exactly where the direction of this program is heading. So that's been led by Captain Ruby Schleicher, who's out of contract, has a 2-year deal on the table, but that's been on the table for some time now and it's still yet to be signed. Vice-Captain Geordie Allen, we know she tried desperately to move to Brisbane during last year's trade period. That was until Collingwood blocked those efforts on deadline day. Then you go through it, Tani White, Bree Davey, Matea Breed, Sarah Rowe, Lauren Butler, all among their best players, all still unsigned, and that's in addition to Michaela Cann, who wanted out last year and left, went to the Western Bulldogs, as we know. So you look at it from this game in round one, and I was watching this one keenly. The Tigers won 2 games last year. They went through an external review of their football program, which led to their coach being sacked, their football boss being sacked. They had the #1 pick in the draft. Their best player and their co-captain, Ali McKenzie, was out, and yet they still beat Collingwood pretty comfortably. So I think internally, the sense I get from some of the playing group and around that football club at the moment is that you look at their men's team and it's one of the best and the biggest in the competition, if not the country. And I think a few of their AFLW players and the people around that program are wondering, how have we been allowed to be so disappointing for so long, and just exactly how and when is it going to get better?
It's interesting though. I mean, Sarah, we've done some briefings with Collingwood and their coach, Sam Wright, and he sort of always talked about it was going to be a long-term build with this club because they were starting from a long way back. What do you make of Riley's news?
Yeah, so this is going to be the 3rd year under Sam Wright, and quite often we see a bit of a 3rd-year jump in the AFLW. We're yet to see that, albeit 1 week in. The Pies were saying that they've built this list and this game plan around defence first, and this is the year that they're going to go not all out attack, but they're going to really bring in that attacking portion of the game. That's going to be a big watch. If that doesn't eventuate this year, I think that, yeah, there's serious questions have to be asked. They've already got assistance package in the form of a few extra list spots. They decided to go with a few netballers, which is a different way of doing things and probably shows that there are serious holes on that list that they haven't been able to address because of previous issues with their drafting, you know, in the last 4 or 5 years we're talking about. Girls who would now be entering their prime, that's the hole on their list. So there's a lot of pieces of this puzzle that still need to be put in place. And like you, Riles, I'll be keeping a close eye on the Pies.
All right, watch this space for sure when it comes to Collingwood. But let's talk about all things Carlton, because it was a great way, Mim, to kick off your season, a big win over the Saints in Spud's game. But very weird because we had that split round one. You had a bye last weekend, so what did you do?
Absolutely unheard of in the AFLW.
Yeah, normally you pile games in.
Yeah, like 2 in a week, let's do it. No, personally, I was like watching games last weekend. I want to be playing, but I think there was a few players that weren't too mad about it because we had a few players short-term injuries, so that allowed them another week to get back. Few tests still, but it's pretty exciting. Hopefully they get up, and then I think you were saying earlier the Saints got a few days off, so that's nice for them. But it actually gave us the chance to roll some players through the VFLW. Some players that didn't play in round one that, might not get an opportunity for a few weeks. So it's really good to get some good footy into them.
You didn't have an impromptu meeting or gathering of your book club there at the Blues?
No, last book club meeting was a few weeks ago, Mad Mabel. Very good book.
So good.
Yeah, I've heard you read it. But no, we need a few weeks. We're pretty slow readers, to be honest.
That's okay. You've got other things at hand. Hey, that double header with the men's side, did you feel like it allowed you guys to bond together more naturally as, you know, one whole club with the men's side having that double header?
Absolutely. It was a really good night for Carlton. 2 wins, and you saw on the socials it's up there now, we did our dance together. A few of the boys were a bit shy with it, but they really got into it by the end. I hope the camera doesn't pan to me because I'll be embarrassed. But Josh Fraser's been huge for that. He came to our game before the first bounce and watched. He was probably at Marvel for hours then, I'm thinking. But he is always first to advocate for us. I think in his presser post-game was just started off by saying how proud of us he was for the win. And yeah, so it's been really good. We're definitely gelling.
We can see the gelling, although Mitch McGovern did miss the joint celebration, so it was a little bit delayed and he had to do
I love his little
little shimmy that he did there, so I'm glad he got that done anyway.
Expectations on the year. I mean, you made a prelim last season, had a big trade period as a football club. Like, how do you take that one next step or a couple of next steps and go on to be a real premiership contender this year?
I don't know. It's a hard question. If you figure out, let me know. No, I think we're really happy we got the win. It just takes a lot of pressure off us because we showed that we can play even better footy this year. So we're all a little bit relieved, and now we've had a few weeks to just recalibrate and fix a few things up, and hopefully we get another win this weekend.
Now, over pre-season, I was invited down alongside your club media team to run some water. It poured with rain the entire session.
Yeah.
I wish we had vision of that.
Oh my God, it was incredible. You should have seen her. She was behind the goals, kicking footies back to us. I was like, this is AFLW culture. I loved it.
Yeah, I love it. It was about, relationship building and all that.
Come back if you want.
But one thing I did notice was the competition for midfield spots in particular.
Yeah.
You girls were going all out during that period of pre-season. The bodies were hitting hard. And there's been quite a crunch for selection. Look at all these players who can feasibly run through the midfield. Even Soph McKay can have a little burst there. Claudia Whitford and Brooke Boyler have been added to the group. How have you felt that push and that competition for spots, through that midfield?
Well, Riley, you mentioned how to become a premiership team. I think this is part of it. Throughout the whole pre-season, we had 3v3 midfielders in practice matches and like internal club ones, and the competition was so hard. So that's how you get better, isn't it? When you're training against the best of the best. I've loved having Claudia Whitford come into the group. She is just a beast. And as a bit of an inside-outside mid myself, I like to just try and shape for a handball off her. So yeah, it's looking pretty good. But we actually haven't played too much footy together because Abs and Claudia have had a little bit of an interrupted pre-season. So I'm excited to just keep building with those guys.
And of course, Carlton face Adelaide in their first home game of the season at Icon Park on Sunday. Cannot wait for this one. I will be there. And Sarah, there's some pretty good midfield matchups to look at. Yes, but before I ask you, Mim, about how you go about stopping Adelaide, there's a few midfield battles that I've got my eye on. Of course, Ebony Marinoff, the star there. I've got you two heads there.
I'm not sure about that, but sure.
I've also got Lily Goss there with Sarah Goodwin because she was excellent on the weekend, and Lily is your lockdown midfielder, and Ab McKay and Tia Charlton. But of course, there's so many Carlton girls that can roll through, as with the Crows. You've had so many battles with Adelaide over the years, and quite often it is won and lost through the midfield. What is it about the Crows that make them so good?
Well, I think my only game against Adelaide was my first game back from my ACL years ago.
Wow.
And it was pretty fun, but we lost. So hopefully, different story on the weekend. I think we're really going after just what we can do as a midfield. So you can't really fully stop Ebony Marinoff when she's on a roll, but how can us 4 or 5 midfielders be a really good unit so that even if one of their mids is having a big day, it doesn't really matter. A player that used to don the navy blue is Grace Egan. She's now at her third club, Sarah, in the Adelaide Crows. Last year was a really tough year for her with illness at the Tigers. She had 2 hospital stints before the season started, lost 14 kilos. So it was a tough year. Fresh start now for her at the Adelaide Crows, and she was pretty impressive in her first outing for Adelaide.
She was. The Crows did go down to Sydney, but through no fault of Grace Egan, who's excellent across that half-forward role. Grace's disposal hasn't necessarily been her strong suit. She's such a fierce attacker of the footy, and she tackles hard. But it was her kicking and her placement of her kicks inside 50 that was really impressive for the Crows here. So, fresh start. She's living with Noffy, who is an excellent chef by all reports, and also young Crow Chloe Bown. And sometimes you just need a new start, new environment, new state, just to get everything clicking back into place.
And she wasn't the only new recruit who impressed first up. So take us through some of the other names who made a good first impression.
I was going to say we trawled the tapes, but it wasn't hard to find the highlights for these girls. Jack DePay and Mia Austin are the 2 key forwards that really caught the eye in new colours, really providing a great focal point for their new sides. Mim, you mentioned Claudia Whitford. I'll get back to you on that one. And Taylor Smith. So 3 key forwards there who really made an impact from the get-go and sort of have reshaped their teams and will look to be that extra piece of the puzzle going forward. And Claudia, you said, inside, outside. What is it about Claudia that makes her such an impactful player?
She is so powerful, and I think the one thing about Claudia is she's very hard to tackle. So the amount of time she slipped people at training and now she can transfer that into games is really exciting. And also she's a very good centre bounce player. So we saw T. Smith get on top of us last week, but I think if we can get the ball in Claudia's hands a bit more through the middle of the ground, we'll be really powerful.
We saw Taylor Smith there now in Sydney colours, which is very strange to get used to, but she obviously left a big hole in Brisbane's forward line when she left. This week, it is our match of the round. It is the Lions facing off against North Melbourne, the back-to-back premiers, in a grand final rematch. I cannot wait for this game. And with no Smith and now no Dakota Davidson, Sarah suspended through a striking charge, it's going to be a very different looking forward line.
It really is for the Lions. Just clumsy by Dax there. We know that she likes to make a big impact in the contest, but she was late, she was high. Maddie Gay did play out the game, so I think the Lions were hoping to lower that impact to low and get off with a fine.
Yep.
Didn't get there in the end. Dax had the lion's share of the goals on the weekend, but they do have that spread. So I'll be curious to see. I imagine Rania Crozier will come back into the side to provide a bit of a focal point, but she's young, she's inexperienced. It'll be up to those smalls, Mim, to really do the damage.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned earlier that in our prelim, there's smalls round rings around us, so I wouldn't be surprised if they did some damage. I think, obviously, you want a big target down there, but yeah, don't underestimate the smalls.
And do they have that ability to lower the eyes and hit the targets inside 50?
I think so. I mean, a lot of their goals are pretty spectacular and come from outside 50 a bit, but we'll see what happens.
From a Kangaroos perspective, we always talk about their superstars, Riley, which they have many.
Yep.
But what about some of the lesser lights? And I do feel a little bit bad calling some premiership players lesser lights, but they are still very dangerous. So who do the Lions need to be wary of?
Yeah, I think it's just the depth of talent that North Melbourne has on its list that's made them so powerful for so long. And I think we saw that on Saturday against Geelong. So Tess Craven has 20 disposals and 2 goals. Blaheem Bogue kicks 3. Alo Lachlan kicks 2 and has been an All-Australian before. Eric O'Shea is one of my favourites off half-back. And I think we saw a bit more of their depth come through in the sense that Claire Marnie, who they were holding back last year, might have got a game at most other clubs, didn't play, comes in, looks like a really good intercepting option across half-back. We saw that the year before when Blaheem Bogue didn't play much footy, then comes in, is an All-Australian, one of the best players in the competition. And then you look still, that's the players that are still to come into this side, like Christy Lee Weston-Turner was a former #1 pick, didn't play on the weekend, expecting her to play probably later in the year if she gets into this side at the moment. So they've just got so much depth in so many areas at the moment, the Kangas.
Yeah, they do. And they're on a 28-game winning streak, which has been well documented. Back-to-back premiers. Again, they are flag favourites. Mim, do you think that the gap is widening, or do you feel like teams are closing in? And secondary to that, do you think the league might need to introduce some equalisation measures?
I think it's probably too early to say. I did enjoy watching that first quarter where Geelong went with them, and I was getting pretty excited, and then obviously North made a meal of them. But I don't think that there needs to be equalisation. I feel like North have probably spoken about this, the fact that the league should catch up. And I really hope that Carlton is catching up and some other teams as well. But I guess we'll kind of find out when Brisbane take them on this weekend.
Do you feel like, I guess, it makes everyone else want to raise the bar and their own standards within their own clubs?
Yeah, we have a lot to learn from North. So if Croc wants to give us any advice, we'll take it.
We're trying to get him on the show.
Yeah,
Shout out to Croc, and then you can maybe share some secrets.
On, Darren.
Now, Riles, last week you had some news around draft changes, but there's one more tweak you've got for us.
Yeah, so the AFL has introduced what clubs are essentially calling the Christy Lee rule. So remember last year...
Imagine having a rule name.
I know.
And normally it's
the
for
Minnie Hill
Yeah,
rule?
come on.
Remember last year when Christy Lee Weston-Turner obviously requested the trade to North Melbourne, didn't get traded, then had to wait about a week to go through the draft. So what's happened now is essentially clubs have been told that from now on, players who don't get traded can set a price on their head going into the draft. So if this had been the case last year, and we're seeing some of Weston-Turner's highlights from the VFLW now, but if this had happened last year, Weston-Turner arrived at North Melbourne on a standard 2-year draftee contract, which is around 70 grand. Having been on an AFLW list before, she could have nominated, say, 100 grand and said, I'm going to go to a club for 100 grand. Like what happens in the men's in the pre-season draft,
Right.
You can set a price on your head which wards off other clubs from taking you. So in that instance, Hawthorn of Brisbane had some interest in potentially taking Weston Turner in the draft. If she had have had a higher price on her head, they would have been less likely to do that. There's a few things and a few boxes that need to be ticked for clubs to be able to do this. I think the most notable one is that the AFL will have to be satisfied that both clubs have attempted in good faith to negotiate a trade before it can come to this, and that a genuine impasse in those talks have occurred. So clubs can't manipulate it and use it essentially as being a way of making an AFLW free agency rule. They do actually have to have trade talks, but it just means there's less uncertainty for players like Christy Lee Weston Turner in the future.
So like what Cal Archie
Like Cal Archie, Jack Martin's done it before in
Yep.
the past. I think it was pushed by the AFLPA because essentially what they said was there's a mechanism for men's players to be able to get to their club if a trade doesn't go through. As things stand, there's so much uncertainty for women's players. So it's just a way of shoring
I
it
like
up and
it.
ensuring they can get to their club if a trade can't go through.
Yeah, nice one from you. It is now time for us to explore the stories behind the players, and it's time for Beyond the Boots with Sarah Black.
Beyond the Boots with Sarah Black and with Cambridge McCormack, the Giants All-Australian defender. I spoke to Cambridge just before the season kicked off. Of course, she had a trade request to Mimi's Carlton over the trade period. That one fell through. She's with the Giants for another year and is set to go around again in the orange. What I loved about Cambridge's story is that it's a story of persistence. So Cambridge actually started as a train-on for the Brisbane Lions back in 2017, moved down to Port Macquarie for uni. She's a physio by trade, so that was her study, was uni at Port Macquarie. And she got there and there was no women's league. This is, the very early days of the AFLW. So she rocked up to the Port Macquarie Magpies, the men's club, and said, hey, I'm Cambridge, I'm from Queensland, I play footy up north, and I'd love to, see if I can train with you boys for this season.
Love the confidence.
Yeah, also to the Magpies' credit, they said, the head coach was like, well, have you got your boots? And she said, yeah, they're in the car. So picked it up and trained with the Magpies for a year.
Good.
They got a women's league up the following year. And then she ended up playing there for a few years, went to Canberra for work, and that's where she met up with Jess Allen, of all people, playing with the East Lake Demons. So imagine Cambridge McCormack and Jess Allen playing local footy. That's terrifying. And that's where the Giants found her. So that's the backstory of Cambridge McCormack over a couple of states, couple of teams, taking the long way in. She's now an All-Australian and she's still working as a physio too. So she works 2 to 3 shifts a week at the Royal Sydney Hospital, Prince of Wales Hospital, Royal Children's Sydney Hospital as a physio ED. So if you come in with a rolled ankle and you're up in Sydney, you may be treated by Cambridge McCormack.
I like it. There's a picture of her there, and of course you can read more about this story on women's.afl and the AFLW app as well. Now, Sarah, we saw quite a few AFLW players playing in the VFLW at the weekend. So that's the Victorian side of things. But what about the non-Vic clubs? What's happening there?
Yeah, there's a fair bit of consternation around this at the moment, Nat, for the non-Victorian sides. The scrimmages are still available for the non-select players. So there was one on the weekend held in Adelaide. There were about 40 players who took part in that one. 6 of the 8 non-Victorian sides said, yep, we'll send our players across. The issue with that is that you don't have great numbers. Quite often you'll end up with 8v8 or 9v9 on a full field.
Yeah, that's not ideal.
It's not the most organised of situations in terms of minutes managed, being able to play in your position, your preferred position. Long travel for a lot of these unselected players who might have to go from Brisbane or Gold Coast down to Adelaide. And quite often clubs also send a staffer across too, because you can't be putting, 4 or 5 18, 19-year-olds on a plane and sending them across the country by themselves. You know what happens if they get injured or anything. So there's club resourcing question at play too. VFLW, we saw 46 AFLW players roll through the VFLW on the weekend. So that's a huge advantage currently that all of the Victorian clubs, bar Richmond, who still don't have an alliance with the VFLW club, have up their sleeve, and Mims Blues used it heavily too.
That's so interesting. I mean, what do you think holistically, Mim, as for the future? Would it just make sense to align all of the VFLW, the SANFLW seasons alongside the AFLW? Does that make the most sense?
I think so. It makes sense to me. We had, I think, 8 players in the VFW on the weekend, and Carlton's done a really good job at aligning our VFW and AFLW programs. So it just gives these players so much purpose on the weekend. To get the job done, you're playing the same game style as well, so you actually feel like you're getting seen by the coaches compared to the scrimmages where you're not doing that. It's probably everyone for themselves a little bit more. So if it's a possibility, I think aligning the competitions is the right call.
All right, let's take a look now at what is coming up in round two. We obviously spoke about Carlton and Adelaide and, of course, that grand final rematch there at Brighton Homes Arena on Saturday night. We've also got a double header at GMHBA Stadium between the AFL and the AFLW sides, which is brilliant. A second double header on the Sunday as well, which is very, very exciting. Sydney Swans and Essendon at the SCG. Collingwood and Freo at Victoria Park. And then that final game of the round, Port Adelaide and Hawthorn. Now, that's a really intriguing game for mine. The Hawks travelling over to South Australia. And Sarah, it was such a cracking game against the D's. Hawthorn did well for quarters 2 and 3. They probably didn't capitalise as much, and the D's got a hold of them in the end. But there are some concerns for their backline when it comes to Hawthorn.
Yeah, so the Hawks would be wanting to contend this year and be a serious finals threat. They still haven't got that maiden finals win over the line. But I have serious questions about their backline's depth in the absence of Emily Everest, who's down with an ACL injury. They did bring in Matilda Van Berkel from their VFLW team. She went down with a foot injury. So now it's Annabelle Embleton next in line. And I think they were really exposed overhead against the D's, who had numerous forward 50 threats, but even if Tyler Anks is bobbing up to mark that one, it's not necessarily a height issue too, it's sort of a bit of communication. Then you look at Port Adelaide, their opponents on the weekend, and they have one of the tallest forward lines going around. Gemma Houghton, Indy Tahu, Lauren Young, and then we also have Julia Teakle sitting there cooling her heels on the sidelines.
Can't believe she didn't get a game.
I know, it's because Lauren Young's fit and firing. So, yeah, you've got her pushing up and Indy and Gemma causing havoc out the back. So that's going to be a serious area of concern for Hawthorn, not just for this game, but for their finals chances.
It's going to be a big watch on the Hawks. One thing to watch ahead of this weekend's game. Riley, I'm going to start with you. What's your one thing to watch?
Well, I was excited about North Melbourne, Brisbane, but then realised I was working on something. So I think what I might do is phone on flight mode, not know the scores, get home, watch the replay.
I like it.
How are you going to go on Twitter? Because you're monitoring game action as well.
You might just have to stream it on the AFLW app.
Maybe I'll do that.
And watch 2 games at once, which, you know, you should be able to. Oh, actually, no, you're a man. You can do that. I'm joking.
Well, hey, fair.
Mim, what are you looking forward to?
I'm very much looking forward to first home game for Carlton.
Yep.
Icon Park. Get down to gate 6 because we have Abby McKay bobbleheads for
my
free.
gosh.
So get your hands on one of those. Look how cute she looks.
Just bobbling away.
Yeah, hopefully a big game from Abs, considering we've got her bobbleheads going around. So very exciting.
Do you have a bobblehead?
I do. I'm not the biggest fan of my own bobblehead. I just think it's a pretty rude pill. But still cool to have a bobblehead, hey?
It is very cool.
Yeah.
Do your parents have what? Like,
Oh,
is
yeah,
it
I
on
think
the
there's, like,
on the
probably
fridge or
17
something?
Sarah, what about you? What are you looking forward to?
Bit of a left field one, but Adelaide have Gold Coast's #1 pick. So this is more just one to watch going forward. Adelaide have the Suns' first round pick. So should the Suns finish bottom of the ladder or thereabouts, Adelaide are going to have a very healthy pick come the end of the season. So one to watch.
Well, one thing for me to watch is, everyone knows I love my food and I love a good sanger. And Hector's Deli does some very good sandwiches, and they are going to be at all Melbourne AFLW home games. So in Casey, you're going down to Casey in a couple of weeks.
Yep, I am.
Get yourself a Hector's Deli sanger and maybe a cheeky donut, Riley. And I'm very much looking forward to having some good food just to watch the W.
Love it.
So looking forward to that. Now, Mimi, last week, Maddie
Yes.
Gay left a question for you. She had no idea it was going to be you that was coming on the show. Let's just revisit what Maddie's question was.
I want you to explain who you've had the selfie with, most famous person you've had a selfie with, and where.
Okay, I've spoken earlier about this, but I don't really do photos with famous people because I'm too awkward to ask. But I think last year I went to see Fred again. Everyone knows Fred again,
Yes.
really sick DJ. And I went to see him, awesome night. Next day I was at the airport and I went to check my bag in, and the women checking the bags in were like, oh, who's this DJ they're all talking about? I was like, DJ? And I turned over and it was Fred again.
Oh.
So I'm seeing everyone take photos with him. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm not going to be like the other girls, you know?
Yeah.
Too cool. So I walked up to him and I said, Fred, mate, how are you? And I was like, look, you're just so talented. Like, I was at your show last night. And he was like, yeah, thanks. I was like, cool, he doesn't need me telling him. But he then said, have a safe flight. So I thought that was really sweet.
I'm sure he
So we're basically best friends.
appreciated that. Oh,
Yeah.
okay, so you
Yeah.
and Fred again,
Yeah.
besties. Has anyone else had a encounter or a selfie with a celeb?
No, I don't think so.
I can't take selfies.
You'd want a selfie with Dua Lipa. That would
Oh,
be
I'll
my,
come in that too.
like
She's
next
elite.
level.
I'd go to
haven't-
Florida, I reckon.
No, I can't. I'm sort of like Mim, but more so that
cool?
No, it's too awkward.
Yeah.
Like I'm not. I've got short arms. I can't take selfies properly.
Oh no, I'm all over that. Yep. Anyway, Chris Hemsworth.
You haven't got. Sorry, just to clarify, you haven't got a selfie with Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah,
But it-
no,
oh, you do
the
have?
2016 grand final. I was in the room.
Wow.
Yep. That was a great time. Now you need to leave a question
Okay.
for next week's guest. So I need you to go down the barrel of the camera 3, and just
All right, Maddie, thank you for that question. I'm going to stay on theme with the famous theme. Would you rather be a famous singer or a famous actor?
Ooh, what would you rather be?
A famous actor, because I know I'm shocking at singing and I just feel like I have a bit of pizzazz about me. So
I like it.
Yeah.
Yep, I could see you as an actor.
Singer.
Yeah, singer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a singer too.
Yeah.
Hey guys, wait. So what kind of vibe? Like grungy, like
I haven't even thought about that. Yeah, I reckon
like
that'd be
indie
cool.
areas?
You'd like to be like an arena performer. I reckon that'd be a good one.
Yeah, sick.
Yeah, we could talk about this.
Yeah, yeah. Let's talk
I'd
about
want to be
bad.
Brandon Boyd from Incubus, but that is it from the W Show. Thank you so much for joining us, Mim. Thank you so much. Good luck against the Crows this weekend. We'll be back again next Thursday. Enjoy the footy.